So never in my life would I have thought that I'd be making a video about Dark Road of all things. I did think the story was pretty well written, all things considered. It's just not something that I've really thought about once since I watched it. But I recently found myself looking up some of the characters on the wiki and noticed how their names were written out in Japanese, and that sent me falling down this rabbit hole of realizing I never bothered to look up how these characters' names were supposed to be pronounced, mainly because I don't care about any of them. Anyway, I doubt these guys will ever be coming back in any significant way, so their names will most likely never be spoken out loud in a Kingdom Hearts game. And even if they were, the dub would most likely anglicize their names since we're stupid Americans who can't even pronounce Ketchi. But this is how their names should be pronounced. Well, relatively. I'm sure I'm going to be butchering all these pronunciations anyway. Let's start with Xehanort's classmates. The first two are easy, Bragi and Baldur. In Japanese, they're written as Buragi and Barudoru, and it's pretty straightforward with them. Next, we get Ver. I'm sure most of you have been pronouncing her name as Vor, because obviously, but the kana is Veru, and her name is based off the Norse goddess of the same name, but whose name is written as this. That O is pronounced more like an sound, which is being depicted as an in Japanese, because I guess it's the closest they could get to, since Japanese vowels are way more simplistic than other languages. Though the more common spelling of the goddess's name in Japanese is actually Voru, which that feels more close to saying Vor in English than the other spelling. Maybe that's why they went with the alternative one. I think this is due to the difference between an Old Norse and Icelandic pronunciation. This letter in Icelandic being more while in Norse being more but I'm not versed in any of that, so I'm not gonna speculate. Someone can correct me in the comments for sure. Anyway, Hermoth is next. This one is a bit more straightforward. This is the name that tipped me off to doing some research on these guys, because in Japanese, his name is spelled Herumozu. And I was like, whoa, where'd that Z at the end come from? Well, it's because his name should be written as this, with that letter F at the end being pronounced as th, like in Nidhogg in the newest God of War game, not like Nidhogg in Final Fantasy XIV. Japanese doesn't have that th sound, so they substituted with a Z sound or an S sound or a T sound sometimes to approximate, so Hermoth becomes Herumozu. And in case you're wondering about that R at the end, it's effectively silent here. It's supposed to be a short tapped R, but I'm assuming it's not pronounced enough to even warrant a separate kana in the Japanese spelling, since kana almost never end on consonants anyway, so I'm guessing they figured that semi-silent breath at the end of those names is enough of an approximation of the short tapped R. That said, this doesn't even seem to be the case with Hermoth here, since they don't even give him an R at the end of his name. So that short-tapped R shouldn't even be applying to this, but in other names later it should. And strangely, Baldur's name has the R actually pronounced, but I think that's most likely because his name's being based off the alternative spelling of Baldur or Boulder. And speaking of being based on alternative spellings, we get Urd. And the reason I say that is because her name should also be written as Urth if we were trying to be authentic, meaning it should have that sound at the end of her name, like in Hermoth. And the common Japanese pronunciation for her name is in fact Uruzu, that Z being the th. However, the kana for her name is Urdo, indicating that it is a hard D sound at the end, unlike Hermoth. And I don't know why they went with that spelling, but as far as the Dark Road character is concerned, her name is pronounced Urd. Their teacher also uses the uncommon spelling of the Allfather's name, which is usually Odin, and instead goes with Woden. So keep in mind, when you say this guy's name, it's not Master Odin, but Master Woden. Now we're moving on to the Upperclassmen. Heimdall is actually not pronounced as it is in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's Heimdall there, but here, the katakana is Heimdaru, and that's Heimdall. And Helgi and Vali are entirely straightforward. So is Sigrun for that matter, but after them let's tackle Vidar. Just like with Hermoth, his name is based off the name Vithar, who uses the eth letter. but doesn't have a tapped R at the end. Now, the kana for his name is Vizaru, which indicates a V sound at the start, but the name Weithar should actually be pronounced with a W, and I'm not sure why they changed it from Weithar to Vithar, especially since W's are way easier to replicate in Japanese than V sounds, but I digress, his name here should be Vithar. The next one is Vala, but actually her name was changed for the English localization because in Japanese her name is Vulva, and I don't think I need to explain why they changed that. But as far as her English name is concerned, Vala is easy enough to figure out. It reminds me of one of the only good later additions to Stargate SG-1. And finally we get Baldur's sister, whose name is Hathr. Properly written, it's like this, again with the letter F and the short tapped R at the end, and when written in Japanese, it's Hezu. This is the name that looks most unlike how it is spelled out in English, like you wouldn't be able to assume this is the pronunciation just off rip. And as an aside, what's funny is that in mythology, Hathr was tricked into helping slay their brother Baldur, but in Kingdom Hearts, it was Baldur who was tricked into slaying Hathr. At least that's what I think happened. It's been a while since I watched those scenes, but I'm pretty sure there was that thing with Maleficent and darkness, and I hope that I'm right about that. If I'm not, you can correct me. Anyway, yeah, her name is Hathr. And that's all 13, Patrick. Anyway, again, I'm sure all these names will be 100% anglicized if ever spoken out loud in the Kingdom Hearts English dub later on down the line. So if you've been saying Vidar and Hodor and Hermod, then you can celebrate when that day comes. I, for one, hope they at least try to be true to the Japanese pronunciations, but who knows, guess we'll see. Anyway, thanks for watching, and make sure to comment down below about how badly I pronounced all these Norse and Icelandic names and terms. Thank you.